When you need to know what's going on in the UK, David Kurten has his finger on the pulse. Today's News Talk, TNT.
Sadiq Khan has been re-elected as London Mayor. We know that from the election results last week. And he got in with 44% of the vote, and he's got 4 more years to do what he wants to do to London. A lot of people are not happy about that. I'm not happy about that. You know what I think of Sadiq Khan, because I questioned him for 5 years when I was on the London Assembly. But one of the big issues in the London election campaign was the ULEZ, the ultra-low emission zone, which Sadiq Khan first implemented in 2017 with the T charge, and then the central area in 2019. He expanded it to inner London in 2021, and then expanded it to the whole of Greater London in 2023. So if you have an older or mid-age petrol or diesel car, you now have to pay £12.50 per day to drive your car in anywhere in Greater London. Now, someone who is not happy about that at all is the well-known ULEZ or anti-ULEZ campaigner, Claire Dyer. Claire, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. So, yeah, always have a lot to say.
Yeah, that's great. Well, there is a lot to say. And, obviously, this is bad news as far as I'm concerned for London. I mean, what do you make of Sadiq Khan being re-elected? What does this mean for London now?
Well, I think in the short term, obviously, it isn't very good, because Susan Hall said, obviously, if she got in, she would stop ULEZ on day one. So that would have meant that for people who do still currently have non-compliant cars, and I wouldn't believe that it's only 10%, because I know a lot of people just in my small area who have non-compliant cars, and their lives have just been made almost impossible, especially if there's a camera right just down the road. So their lives would have been made a lot easier all round, mental stress, financially in the short term. But we can't deny that Paper Mile will be coming. Just to be clear, Khan did get 17% of the London votes, but only 40% of people actually voted, which is under half. And I wouldn't say that is because people couldn't be bothered. It's because people just don't believe that we live in a democracy anymore where our vote counts. More and more people don't have faith in any of our politicians anymore. And it really doesn't help before an election, the Conservative Party actually saying that they put up the wrong candidate. So if they're going to say that they have no confidence in their own candidate, then how are the public going to have confidence? You could look at it as, who do you pick out of a bad bunch? So a lot of people didn't vote for that reason. We're kind of governed by consent, but people no longer are giving consent to be governed. So I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people didn't vote, because they don't believe their vote counts. Let's say the majority of the votes are in inner London, who already have the congestion charging. So if you look especially coming south to the outer London boroughs, Hall, the Conservatives, did actually win the vote in those boroughs, including my borough, Bromley, Bexley. We won the vote. And primarily a lot of our areas are countryside, and that's what sets us apart from actually being London. We don't have the public transports, we don't have trains, we don't have trams, we don't have all our amenities on our doorstep, and even to drive to a nearest town in any direction is going to take us 15-20 minutes by car. So it's a difficult one. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the postal vote. There's a lot of talk about people going to actually vote and being told that their vote had already been done by post, and they've never done a postal vote in their lives. So is that something that should be looked into? I don't know. The fact is, people aren't happy. It looks like it's a clear majority. I wouldn't necessarily believe that. Through all of our campaigning over the last year, going to various towns in all the outer London boroughs across the whole of London, I have to be honest and say we've rarely come across somebody who said that they liked him, would vote for him, or wanted his policies. So what happened? I don't know.
It's really hard to prove, isn't it? Because He got 44% of the vote. Susan Hall got 33%, so he got 11% more. You know, it's quite a big margin, 250,000 votes or more ahead of Susan Hall. But you know, I've heard the same thing from other people who are campaigning, that they never met a single person who liked Sadiq Khan, who wanted him back as for another 4 years, who was going to vote for him. I mean, I wasn't standing this year myself. I stood in 2021 to be the mayor. But even the Muslims there, they didn't want him because they said he was bad for business because
And
he
that's
was putting in all these traffic restrictions. And they hated his massive support for all this LGBT, transgenderism and gender nonsense.
Yeah, I have to say that even I was shocked when we campaigned in areas that, obviously had a high, Muslim community. And
Mm,
he, yeah, like you just said, even they were saying the same. They wouldn't vote for him. So who did
mm,
vote? But then do we say they're selected, not elected? And that goes back
mm,
to a lot of people are now starting to feel that does our vote actually really count? Do we actually live in a democracy? And more people are saying this now. I mean, where do we go from here? I mean, like I said, we would have had a short reprieve, let's call it, but we know Paper Mile is still on the cards. We know Project Detroit exists. There's a lot of
mm.
stuff being covered up, a lot of information being covered up, but it'd be very hard to deny Paper Mile. And is that going to come across the UK? So, all eyes are on London, and especially with the elections, but we need to have our eyes on other cities as well. With what
Mm.
Oxford is doing, because all of the cities across the UK are implementing some kind of form of congestion charging, for the net zero policy. But that is just going to expand out with Paper Mile. And, rumour has it, is it going to be up to £2 per mile? So where does that leave the people of the UK? We're being
And
squeezed
yeah.
financially. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
I know. I know. I was when I was there on the London Assembly. I mean, it was something that first came up in conversation in 2018. This paper mile system. We had. I was on the transport committee, and we had a panel there, and people were advocating and promoting that for the first time, and they were looking at Singapore because Singapore has got some kind of system which is not you being tracked everywhere, but they have so many gantries. They have about 40 different gantries at key points across the city, and every time you drive through one of them you get a charge, and it's
Yeah.
directly taken out of your bank account. That's the system they want to use in Oxford. But Sadiq Khan obviously wants to go further, and he wants to have black boxes in all of your cars, and that's going to be linked up to 5G, which is going to track you every single meter that you drive. I mean, that's the vision. That goes with the whole Agenda 2030, 17 Sustainable
Yeah.
Goals,
And
Development
then,
Goals
yeah.
agenda.
And it's been a long time in the planning. I mean, it's been years and years and years. A lot of people think that it was Sadiq Khan that dreamt this up, but he didn't. It goes back years before that. So, but they're going to push towards electric. I mean, electric isn't necessarily good for the environment either. But then come December 2025, electric cars are going to be charged. So if they're
Mm,
pushing this whole electric is good for the environment, why do they need to be charged? Why are motorcycles in this country also being charged when there's no data for them because their emissions are so low? It wasn't even worth noting on paper what their
mm,
emissions are, yet they are charged in London here, but nowhere else. There's too many inconsistencies. There's too many things that don't make sense. Moving on, go to electric. How many people can afford electric? But then once you've got an electric car, there is an initiative for car sharing. How's car sharing going to work? And then reduced ownership of private vehicles. Like I said, for all the people that live directly actually in the city, there's probably not an issue. It's probably easier to use public transport, the tube. It's quicker than it is
yeah.
to drive by car, but not for people that live in Greater London who are where I live. It's lanes. There's no pavements. There's no street lighting. How are people supposed to get about? It's just not a reality, really. But it almost feels like they don't care about the people. Not really. There is one option. You talked about the London Assembly. Do the outer boroughs try and leave the GLA? We didn't get taken over by London until 1965. We were Kent. London expanded out, do all of these boroughs really campaign hard and push to remove themselves from the London borough. Go
Well, that
back
is a
to
very interesting idea. Could Bromley go back into Kent or become completely autonomous like Thurrock, or, Havering is another one, or Hillingdon? Maybe that's what, the people there could get together and say, well, this is what we want. That would be interesting.
I mean, it would
Yeah.
ultimately it would be a short fix. Again, we know that it would be a short fix because paper mile is coming. But it would be making a stand as well. It will still be showing that the people aren't happy. And a lot of people are off the back of, the election saying, we don't want to be a part of London anymore. There are pros and cons for both. But right now, people are seeing that actually there's more pros right now to not being a part of London Borough. Just because of what is happening. And it isn't obviously just the ULEZ. There's lots of other things as well. We don't fit within London. We just don't. These outer boroughs, they should never have been classed as London. So, yeah, people are feeling probably a little bit defeated, a little bit disheartened. For me personally, I wasn't, because I never believed he was going to get out anyway. As I said, I don't believe we live in a democracy. I believe these people are selected, not elected. I believe that it is a global agenda. It's coming everywhere. The only thing to probably feel a little bit disheartened about, that if it is a global agenda, how do you fight something like that's global, that's happening across the world? So
yeah, I mean, one thing I would slightly disagree with you is I don't think it's completely hopeless in the democratic system. Obviously, I lead a party. I was on the assembly. Now I lead the Heritage Party. We're trying to get people elected as councillors at a local level, and we'll be standing MPs as well. So he did get some support from somewhere, but I think what we got to look at is the 60% of people who didn't vote here. How can we get them to vote? Because if everyone says, I'm not going to do anything, it's hopeless, then by default you are consenting to the winning person being elected, because the election officers are not going to look at the 60% of people who didn't vote and said, oh well, we're going to listen to them, because by abstinence from voting, they've given their consent to the winner, right? So I think we have to all get involved in the process. I don't know what you think about that, but that's my view anyway.
Yeah, well, like I said, it goes back to the fact that the general feeling was there wasn't any real one party that people actually wanted to vote for. Actually, there was kind of one potential candidate. It actually happened to be Reform. But the fact is, people knew that he probably didn't stand a chance. So by voting for him would actually split the vote. I think everybody knows that there was a lot of tactical voting. Not many people wanted to actually vote Conservative, but they did, to do a tactical vote to get the best chance of getting him out. But you still had those people that refused to vote. You've got to have trust in those politicians. You've got to have trust in those candidates. And if you don't have trust in your government or your politicians, especially with, the stories that are coming out about them, people don't have faith in them. And they need to listen to the people, because the bottom line is the people said no to ULEZ. There was a vote on it. The people said no, and he went against the people anyway. So it just proves that they're not listening to the people, and they should be.
There's a consultation, wasn't there? He totally ignored the consultation, which was overwhelmingly against expanding the ULEZ, and he just went and did it anyway. So there we go. Look, we're nearly coming to the end of the show, Claire. But if any final thoughts? I mean, what I would say is, Tory, Labour, Lib Dem, Green, they're all pretty much the same, and I would not recommend any of them.
In an ideal world, we need to create a whole new party with genuine good people with true intentions that is for the people. That's what we need.
Well, I'm doing. Here we are. You can look at my party. There you go. I'll just say that.
But then does power ultimately corrupt? Do you know what I mean? Is it hard to not be corrupted by a system? You know?
It's hard not to be infiltrated, but I'm looking at that, and we are doing our best to change things. So, well, that's a very good thought to leave things on. Claire, thank you so much for joining me when talking about ULEZ and what's happening in London. There will be another chance to change in 4 years' time, and there will be London borough elections in 2 years' time. So that's your next chance to get through and get to new councillors, which are not of the Unity Party. Now, Judith Sharp has just wrote in about something we said before. I've looked at Stonewall for some years. I went onto Companies House to see how they're funded as a charity. Names come up: the Bank of America, Comic Relief, National Lottery, and others. But they don't have to declare how much they donate, as it's a charity. Very interesting comment. Thank you, Judith. Now, coming up next is Rick Munn, and he has on the show with him Jasmine Birtles, Jeff Thompson, Simon Milne, and Basil Valentine. Stay tuned for Locked and Loaded next, and join me again tomorrow on the David Kurten Show on today's News Talk TNT.